For over a decade, I worked with British Cycling. A lot of people will be aware of that as one of the senior managers there. And there was 4 of us, and one of the people on our team was Dr. Steve Peters, who some of you may know. And he was a clinical psychiatrist. God, he'd kill me if I heard me say that. Clinical psychiatrist, and his day job was working with mass murderers and psychopaths. So obviously, everybody was wrapped to start with. But it was a fascinating ingredient that Dave Brailsford had added into the mix, somebody who worked specifically with people's psychology. And I don't know if anybody's ever read it or heard of it, but he wrote a book called The Chimp Paradox, which he developed at British Cycling, and I won't tell you who the models were for his model. But in essence, it's a book. It's an excellent book that describes how people work, how we make decisions, and it took well-known, well-evidenced psychology and tried to translate it. It did translate it into terms that people could actually use this information. And this premise was very simply that there is you and your chimp. Everybody has a chimp. Everybody. And this chimp is an emotional beast, and it's very useful, and it's left over from a long time ago, and it's powerful, and it's a thing that makes you get angry, and it's the thing that steps in to protect you. It's there. But it's also quite difficult to control, as a chimp would be. But by separating the two things, Steve realised that people could then deal with it. Everybody, I'm not responsible for being angry, it's my chimp. But I am responsible for controlling this chimp and directing it. And it was a fantastic premise. He, as I said, everybody has a chimp, and he did point out once that my chimp wears sensible clothes. So sometimes it can be a little bit hard to spot. But one of the things I took from this period of time when we worked together and he was writing this book or pulling together the models for it was that the realisation that we all make decisions based on emotion, on how we feel. And it's a verifiable fact. So if we do that, if we make emotion-based decisions, why are we bothering to be here today to look at things like evidence, to gather evidence? Well, cyclists at the moment are often seen on the roads as an obstacle, an inconvenience, something in my way. But we're not allowed to say that. That's our chimp. We decide on emotion that we don't want this person here, but we can't say the real reasons for that, probably not even to ourselves. So we have to create some rationales for that. So it tends to be safety. They're dangerous, they run red lights, they don't wear helmets, they ride on the pavements. Well, we know that the evidence says that cycling is safe. I think the last stat that I used was it's 800 times around the planet per cycling death. It's the kind of risk you face in the UK. In the paper there, it's 8,000 years. Was it 8,000 years that a regular cycle commuter can ride before they could expect to be killed? So we know that evidence-wise, it's safe, but it doesn't look safe, and it doesn't feel safe most of the time. And I would say most of the time. And that's really what it is that we need to address. This paper has sought to, and I think has, quantified the effect of that feel, that it doesn't look and feel safe. It isn't a place I would encourage right now, I'm sad to say, my children to go and ride. So why is it that we're trying to gather evidence? Well, evidence creates pressure. It exposes lazy, prejudiced, apathetic thinking, and it forces us to control our chimp, if you like, our decision makers, for them to control the chimp, and it speaks to the human being. I think it's our job to take work like this that bridges the gap between emotional and logical decision making, and to use it to push pressure, to push the decision making up to the logical end of the scale. Thank you.